Hey Jack, how's it going, man? Oh, hey man, yeah, it's going good. Cool. So about that VFX shot about halfway through the film, what was it that we decided to do about that again? Do you have a time code for me? A time code in, or do you know a scene number? You know the one that had all the blue screen everywhere. It's pretty VFX heavy film, man. Can you be a bit more specific? You know, the one with the giant blue screen in the background, and he's running. Well, the chase scene's about, 4 minutes long, and it's got about 120 visual effects shots. Can you narrow it down any further? Oh, come on, he's chasing somebody. Well, it is a chase scene, so... the one where he's running, like, really fast. Again, as I said, it's a chase scene. Come on, it's the one where he looks angry. Well, he's chasing the guy who just killed his wife, so, he kind of looks angry throughout. The one where he's got the Converse on. The one where he's praying to God. The one where he's wearing a purple shirt. The one where his eyebrow goes like this. And that is why having a central visual effects database that everybody can reference with pictures and time codes in and out and VFX IDs is pretty essential. Now, well, it is a half joke, the intro there. It is still imperative that you have a way to track your visual effects shots in your project, particularly on larger projects, your action movies or feature films, stuff like that, where, even if it's an indie film or a smaller project, because you're still going to be delivering to vendors, you need to track these shots left, right, and center, what status they're at, especially if they're going to start before the edit's locked. And it just makes things a lot easier for reviewing if you have a centralized way of tracking your visual effects shots. Now, well, it is pretty common on larger projects, particularly on American projects, to use something called a codebook. I'm not necessarily going to go into that because Master the Workflow already have an excellent course over there which actually grants you your own codebook that you can use. And that's a fairly standardized way of working that I've used a couple of times. But it does require that you have a license for FileMaker, which is the most common way of making a codebook. Of course, obviously another form of databasing your visual effects information would be to use Shotgrid, which is probably most commonly used internally by VFX vendors and animation houses and stuff like that. It's sort of tailored to that visual effects and animation workflow, so it's a lot easier for them to have everything centralized in that workspace there like that. But these are larger paid platforms that if you're on the level of project that is using one of these, and you probably either already know how to use them, or somebody in the project does that can show you, and get you up to speed. So for the purposes of this video, I'd like to show you another way of doing it, a way that's free, a way that's simple and easy to share with everybody in your project, and can more or less still track all of the same information and keep it centralized for you. And that is a spreadsheet. With the right scripts and formulas, we can create an online spreadsheet that will track the VFX shot IDs, reference stills, time codes in and out, durations in both time code and frames, and all kinds of other data, anything that we would really need in terms of tracking our visual effects and turning it over to vendors. So that's what we're going to look at in today's video. How to prepare all this data in Avid, how to track visual effects shots on your timeline locally in Avid, and how to get all this data out of your timeline and format it onto the spreadsheet neatly and correctly so that you can track it. So let's get started. Now, first things first, obviously you have to identify which shots are actually visual effects shots. And sometimes this is really obvious. If you see a giant blue screen in the background, I guarantee you that's going to be a visual effects shot. If there's a monitor or screen your character's looking at and there's nothing there and they're supposed to be interacting it, that'll be a screen insert, that'll be a visual effects shot. But occasionally it's not always quite as clear. You might find out a bit later on from the director, for example. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, by the way, we're going to need visual effects to make it rain in this shot. Why? And because of this, you're going to be tagging and identifying these visual effects shots throughout the edit. Probably, from when you have a director's cut all the way through to your lock cut, you'll be tagging and identifying new visual effects shot. So first things first, I recommend just laying on a marker on the VFX shot, just to tag that it's there. I like to have a specific color designated for this, either yellow or pink. And in there, we're just going to slot the VFX shot ID. Now, VFX shot IDs, or shot numbers as they're probably more often referred to, they can vary in formatting, but the basic principle is as follows. We tend to have a 2 or 3, or sometimes if you really have to, a 4-letter abbreviation for your shot name. So when I was working on Shadow in the Cloud, it was SITC. Then we'll have an underscore. And then for our middle section, this is going to be either the scene number or, which is definitely more my preference, a real name or like a tag name given to a section of the film or episode. This is much more flexible way of doing it. If you use your scene number, then if your scenes get rearranged, then you can have, in your VFX IDs, scene, 4 coming before scene 2, and it can look a bit awkward and it's just generally less than ideal. So I like to break it into reels or acts or something like that, something that's a bit more manageable. And that will be what will go in my middle section. And for our last section of the shot number is literally going to be the number. So this is fairly standardized. We generally start at 10 and we generally have 4 digits. And then as we add new visual effects shots within that reel or section or scene, we will increment them by 10 each time. This gives us, some room to play with. If we add a shot later down the line in between 2, then, we have 9 numbers to play with in between those 2 that we can name it. But for the purposes of starting, once you're first laying in IDs for the first time, you'll be going 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way along until you hit the next reel, section, scene, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And yeah, that's the long and short of it. Your VFX vendors, the companies that are going to be doing your visual effects work, we'll generally call them vendors. They might have a preference, a certain formula of how they would like you to do your VFX numbers or IDs. I've actually come across once or twice where their own internal databases sort of require a specific naming convention. And if that's the case, you can just follow that. So it'd be worth checking with the VFX supervisor, post supervisor, producer, someone like that, before you start naming all these in your Avid, so that you don't have to change it later down the line, if that is the case. But anyway, going off on a tangent here. Getting back to tagging your visual effects shots. So we're going to lay down a marker just on a frame that sort of highlights the visual effects shot. So for example, if it's a screen insert, and the screen isn't visible throughout the entire frame, like if we're inserting an image into a monitor and someone walks over it, I'm just going to want to make sure that you place the marker on a frame that clearly shows where the insert is, a frame that shows where your visual effects shot is happening. And we add our marker there, and in the comment of the marker, the name of the marker, we just name it the visual effects shot ID, and we do that all the way along. And this helps us to sort of navigate our visual effects shots within Avid, because we can just have the markers window up and we can scroll up and down, and as will quite often happen, as we talked about before, your director might be describing just visually a visual effects shot that they want to see, and you can just scroll on the markers window, see the little frame preview, and just jump straight to it. Or if they're quite good with using the IDs and shot numbers, then you've also got that in the markers window. There. So you've got both options to be able to jump straight to them. But as the edit progresses, once you get into your fine cut, once you're starting to show this to the vendors and more discuss the visual effects work that needs to be done, you're going to want those shot numbers burned into the image, burned into your exports. And for that, we're going to use the SubCap effect. So the SubCap effect, very, very simple to use. We'll just mark in and out the duration of our VFX shot, drop the SubCap effect in there on a layer above. It will be the same layer that we'll use for our markers. We'll just keep a video track reserved for all this VFX ID information. And then we just copy the same VFX ID number from the marker into your SubCap. And once you have the text and format sizing done for your first one, I just drag the icon from the effect editor into a bin so that you've saved that preset of your VFX ID, your SubCap VFX ID. and then you can just drop it on all future ones and just quickly edit the shot number as you lay them in. I must admit I do have a Keyboard Maestro macro written. If you're familiar with macros and you like to use them, this is one that I would definitely recommend doing. It's very simple to just open up the marker, copy it, come out of markers, open the subcap, paste the information, and then close again. It does save me a lot of time. So my way of doing this would just be to add a blank subcap to all of the visual effects shots that have the marker already on it, and then just run my macro that will go through and, you know, bring all that data through into the subcap. But even if you have to do this manually, it shouldn't take you too long to go through, and you know, if this is a task for the day, and then once you have the data in there, it's in there, and then you know, as long as you have that layer selected on your exports, you'll have that burn-in. Now again, the placement of this burn-in is again something that you might want to check with your VFX supervisor or your post supervisor, since it can sometimes become a point of contention with some people as to where they like it. Some people like it really out the road, like down in the corner, right out the way. And you know, others want it, you know, larger text, very clearly visible. You know, if you have a mask on your timeline, then you know, just slot it in there, nice and easy. But you know, if not, just worth checking with the powers that be to make sure that it's all kosher and it's all good where you've put it. Now, in terms of tracking your visual effects shots and where they are in Avid and for VFX discussions and meetings, that is more or less all we have to do within Avid. But now that we have that set up, let's get this data out of Avid and into our spreadsheet. Now, I have my own spreadsheet as a Google Doc that I like to sort of tinker with and improve on each job that I use it. So I'll open up this template on Google Sheets and then make a copy, rename it for my project, and then I've got a blank slate to get started with. And my blank slate is just fairly standard formatting, just a bunch of headings, you know, visual effects shot number, reference still, timecode, in and out. And I'll have two columns with a bunch of drop-down menus. The first being for visual effects status, and this is for stuff like whether the shot is awaiting turnover, whether it's in progress, like the vendor's working on it. It's been creatively approved, but hasn't went through QC yet. It's finished, or we've changed it from a visual effects shot to DI, or it's been completely omitted and it's no longer a visual effects shot. Stuff like that. This is, you know, one of the main things you're tracking on this spreadsheet. And the second column with drop-down menus will be for the vendor, since quite often, especially these days, you may have more than one visual effects vendor. You'll have more than one company providing the visual effects work. So I'll just add to that list all of the names of the different vendors that we have, and then I can select it as we go. And it also allows you to sort of quickly, or whoever you share the spreadsheet with, this might be, you know, a post producer or a VFX producer, to quickly reassign a visual effects shot to a different vendor. You know, if this is going to be your centralized database, it can be a very good way to, you know, to do that reassignment. But as I said before, this spreadsheet is currently a blank slate. So let me show you how I'd go about getting all the data out of Avid that we've just sort of set up and into our spreadsheet. So first things first is our VFX IDs and our timecodes. To do that, I'll just open up the subcap in Effect Editor, probably just the first instance. I'll just usually always go to the first one. Go to Caption Details and Export Caption Data. You'll have two options when you go to export the caption data. You'll have STL, which is Avid's subtitle subcap format. So if you just change that to .text and save it as a text file, wherever you like, give it a name that makes sense, and that's us got that data. Now, before we go back to our spreadsheet, we'll also export some reference stills of all our visual effects shots, and we can do this easily in one fell swoop with all of our markers. So we'll just go File, Export from the timeline, go to Options, create a new preset, set your preset to be a graphic, and then I usually just do a JPEG, you know, it's the most sort of universally accepted, and then just also select to use sequential files, markers only, and ideally topmost image as well, and just don't have any sort of ticks at the top for like use specific tracks or anything like that. And that way you're going to get, you know, any and all burn-ins that you have on the timeline, all of your image data, and our full reference frame of your picture. And now, as long as you've also selected to use your marker comment, then once you hit save and export, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of JPEGs all named as per your markers. It's a really, really great tool. In Avid, you can export hundreds of markers at once as JPEGs. Avid might need to think about it for a sec, but they do usually export fairly quickly. And yeah, then you have your reference stills. Right, now we've got our data out of Avid, let's have a look at getting it into our spreadsheet. So for the VFX IDs, you're going to want to open it in some sort of spreadsheet application. So this can be anything from Apple Numbers to LibreOffice to Excel, whatever will let you open it up. But generally speaking, once you open up, you're going to have to do a little bit of reformatting. And this is a really, really simple change. You're just going to want to set it to do a separator based on a space. So not a tab, but a space. So from every space, it's going to separate it into a different cell. And then once you do that, it's nice and easy. You simply delete all the extra stuff that you don't really need. This was created in Avid SubCap. And then just sort your spreadsheet chronologically. This will give you your time codes in and out on the top, and then your visual effects IDs underneath. From here, simply select all your time codes in and outs, hit copy, and then paste it right next to your visual effects IDs. And then you'll have your ID, and next to it, your time code in, time code out for each shot. Nice and simple. Once you get that all formatted, then all you need to do is copy and paste this information into your Google Sheet. So I'll start with the shot numbers, so paste them in. I've found that with Google spreadsheets, it doesn't always like, pasting values only. So if you do have a certain font size that you like in your Google Sheet, as I do, you're probably going to have to reset that once you paste it in. But it only adds like another click or two. So it's not really a problem. But once you've copied those IDs and time codes in, it's time for the real magic. Calculations. Now, full disclosure, I did not come up with these formulas at all. This was created by the incredibly clever Swedish-based Henrik Cednert. Really sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And he created this with maths based on Andrew Duncan's awesome timecode website, just sort of breaking down the mathematics of timecode calculations. And of course, I'll have links to the original spreadsheet where I got all these formulas from, as well as Andrew Duncan's timecode mathematics website down below in the video description, if you want to build something like this yourself. And again, full thanks to both Andrew and Henrik for creating these resources for us to use. Now, these calculation tools are really, really simple to use once you've got them in. All we have to do is set the timecode base of our project, and then we can copy and paste in the time codes in and out of all of these shots in one fell swoop, and it's going to instantly calculate the duration of each visual effects shot in timecode as well as in frames. And this is really, really important for us because as editors, we tend to work in timecode. Timecodes makes sense to us, hours, minutes, seconds, frames, and it makes sense to directors and producers and a lot of other people that you talk to. But for a lot of reasons that make total sense, for visual effects vendors, they'll prefer to work in frames. So when they're talking about durations, they're always going to be thinking about the shot in frames. So if you can have that duration up there, both in frames and timecode, then everybody can be on the same page and everybody's got the same sense of how long the shot is. So once I've ran these timecodes through my calc sheet, I can copy and paste these durations back through into my main sheet, and that's me got all my durations data into my main spreadsheet. Now lastly, after I've got that inserted, I'll import all my reference stills. Now I haven't actually found a quick way to do this in Google Sheets as of yet. I'm kind of just inserting these one by one and uploading them. But if any of you do find a quicker way to do this, please do let me know. It would be greatly appreciated. And there you have it, everybody. A quick, easy, and free way to display all your visual effects data for tracking and discussion purposes. Once you have this much of it set up, your director, your visual effects producer, they can go through and they can add in more detail in terms of the actual visual effects work that has to be done on any given shot. Maybe details of costing, or anything else that's particularly relevant from their point of view and what has to be included. Any more particular specific details on shots, is probably better coming from them, and they can add in. Now, if you're the first assistant or the editor and you happen to know exactly what the visual effects work is that has to be done on any given shot, if it's fairly obvious, maybe there's a blue screen in the background, you need to insert the background. If there's a big green plate on the screen, it's a screen insert. If someone's just waving around a gun, they need to insert a muzzle flash. Then feel free to add all that information in there, and your visual effects producer or your director can add to it as they go. You'll give them a head start at least.
But Jack, you've totally forgot about all the visual effects plate data. Like the lens and the tape name and all the other plate data that the vendors are telling me I need to send to them. You forgot about it.
Not true. I'm simply saving how I would present all your turnover data for when we do visual effects turnovers, which, of course, will be later in this AE200 course. Happy days!